Hey everybody, it's me again, Jimmy Smith, this time with my post-fight breakdown of the Rosenstruik Gaziev UFC Fight Night. I'm not going to dive into every single fight. Probably co-main and main are going to take up most of the time. And there was a theme here. So, some good finishes, right? Obviously, mostly on the prelims. There's only one on the main card. The Urseg knockout, bang, beautiful left hook over Matt Schnell. On my SiriusXM show, I went 5 for 5 on my picks. I'm not sitting here patting myself on the back. A lot of these were 3-1 favorites, and that's going to be kind of a theme here, is the UFC right now, in between 298, 299, 300, all of those stacked pay-per-views, you're making dinner with leftovers. Whatever's in the fridge, you're throwing it together, you're making casserole. That's what these fight nights kind of feel like to me, is, they're usually, hey, let's see how they do on the fight night and see if they can become stars. I understand that. These, in between these last few pay-per-views, have been exceptionally kind of, wow, who is this kind of deal. So part of the problem with that, when I look at this, you had severe mismatches because you're not playing with a full deck. You're playing with half a deck. So you have fighters that are good and have serious potential against fighters that don't. Or I would be surprised if they did. When you have, for example, Umar Nurmagomedov taking on a guy making his UFC debut, Magomedov's undefeated in his career, undefeated in the UFC. Yeah, he was like a 4-1 favorite, whatever it was. So picking him, I'm not a genius. So that was kind of a theme here, is a lot of one-sided fights, odds-wise. I only went with one upset, and it was the main event, and I was right in that one. But it wasn't, he was almost a 2-1 favorite by the time the fight went off, but I thought that was unjustified. So you had Urseg getting a knockout, 26 seconds, round number 2, beautiful left hook over Matt Schnell, one and done, boom. One of the ways to tell when a fight's done, by the way, and referees look for this, if your head bounces off the canvas, it's over. A lot of fighters get knocked out worse by their head bouncing off the canvas than they do by the actual shot, because you have to be all the way out to kind of snap your head that way. And that was one of those. Good stoppage. It was over. Obviously, great performance in the flyweight division. Umar Nurmagomedov, a wipeout over Almacan. It was, I think one card had it 30-25 or something ridiculous. It was just a wipeout. Yeah, got knocked down early in the fight. Recovered well. Khabib'd him. Great pressure, great takedown. More versatile with his strike. Everything. It was just all over him. Well, this is a guy that hadn't had any UFC experience yet. So it's easy to look good against a guy like that. Mokaev Perez, that was a fun one. Some people were questioning how it was going to end up at the end. I thought Mokaev was going to win the decision. I had it 1-1 going into the third. Mokaev, what's interesting about him and his style is the timing on his takedown is exceptional. He just seems to know exactly when his opponent is really going for it, and he drops for the takedown then. Beautiful timing on it. Now, it doesn't work every single time, but man, it works a lot more than you would expect, especially in a weight class where in the flyweight division, everybody's quick, everybody has good reflexes, everybody has a fast sprawl, and yet he's able to time his takedown to the point where if he doesn't get it, he does this like duck under Kelly type move and ends up taking the back anyway. So I thought it was his takedown, his ability to scramble, right, his ability to threaten from the back all the time, that won him 2 out of 3 rounds. It was a good one. He wins a unanimous decision. Could he be next at flyweight? Maybe. We'll see. It's kind of a jumbled division right now. So I want to spend extra time. Vitor Petrino, Tyson Pedro. I said on my SiriusXM show, breaking this one down, Tyson Pedro was a guy they had faith in at a certain time. That time has passed. When he lost to an over-the-hill OSP and Shogun Rua in back-to-back fights, I was like, yeah, you're not going to be a contender and not beat those guys at that point in their careers. And that was, to me, the high point of Tyson Pedro's career. Always tremendously physically talented. Big dude, good range, good combinations, all that stuff. But every time he fought kind of that veteran next-level guy, Alir Latifi at the time, could be one of those guys, OSP and then Shogun Rua, and he got finished by both of them. And these were guys that, the young eat the old. And I think I picked Tyson Pedro in both of those fights, if I remember correctly, back in the day, because that's how it works, right? The old guy has the name, he's the old lion, he still has a beautiful mane, but doesn't have all the teeth he did when he was younger. And you feed those to the up-and-coming guys, and 9 times out of 10, if you pick the young guy, you're making the right choice. And Tyson Pedro lost both of them and got finished in both of them. And I think the UFC at that point went, okay, well, he's good. He's a fight night guy. He's never going to be great. So after that, one of the keys I always tell people when picking fights is, well, what does UFC want? It doesn't always work out. Sometimes UFC makes plans, some plans don't happen. Fine, it's a live sport, what are you going to do? But you always say, okay, what does UFC want to happen? Why are they making this fight? And when I looked at this one, I go, they know where Tyson Pedro's ceiling is, right? His ceiling is whatever it is, but it's not championship level. It's, okay, here. That's where we are. Let's see if this guy, who's undefeated, his opponent, can get through that. This wasn't a, hey, let's see who wins. It was, okay, Petrino's probably going to beat Tyson Pedro. Let's see what we can do with that. And he did. Now, I want to talk a little bit about that fight. Every style of combat sport, and wrestling, which I don't consider a combat sport, it's a contact sport, it's not a combat sport. Oh, by the way, when I mention that on air, they go, how is wrestling not a combat sport? You know what this is? Potentially dangerous. Anytime you hurt somebody in wrestling, the referee stops you and goes, potentially dangerous, can't do that. You can't crank somebody's arm, can't crank somebody's shoulder, you can't crank somebody's leg. This rubber leg move that Kerry Collat used to do back in the day, he would twist his own knee when a guy threw a single leg on him, tried to take him down, and every time he would twist his knee, the referee would stop it. And, you can't, it's illegal to hurt somebody in wrestling. People get hurt, and it's a contact sport, but it's illegal to hurt somebody. So I don't consider it a combat sport. Every combat sport, the point is to hurt or injure somebody, right? Yeah, you can score points. Yeah, you can do this. Yeah, you can do that. But if you, break somebody's arm in a jiu-jitsu tournament, you win, all right? So that's why I don't call wrestling a combat sport, because, you can get pinned and not feel a damn thing. So anyway, when you look at wrestling and other and combat sports, there's always a base thing, right? In Muay Thai, it's a leg kick. In wrestling, it's a takedown, single leg, double leg. In jiu-jitsu, I'd say it's a guard pass. In boxing, it's the jab. If you can't get past that thing, in jiu-jitsu, whoever passes guard almost always wins in high-level jiu-jitsu. Almost always. And because we can trade sweeps, we can trade takedowns. If somebody passes your guard and they're good, they're going to sit there and you're in deep shit. They're just going to crush you, and that's it. You're never going to get it back. It's almost like the run game in football. If someone can run the ball effectively, it opens up the rest of their offense, and they always have that easy 5 or 6 yards every single time. It's very hard to beat a team that outruns you. Once again, in Muay Thai, I've seen fights in Muay Thai where I was actually in Thailand at, I think, Rajadhan Stadium, and I saw a Turkish guy taking on a Thai guy. And when the Thai guy kicked him in the leg, the look on his face was like he got hit by lightning. Like, he couldn't believe how hard the guy kicked. And immediately I went, you're done. You're done. And the Thai guy knew it too. He's like, oh, man, you're done now. And just chopped his leg down. The dude fell 3 times, and they stopped it. If you don't have a way to deal with the leg kick, you will lose a Muay Thai fight 9 times out of 10. If you can't deal with your opponent's takedown, you will lose a wrestling match 9 times out of 10. If you can't deal with somebody's guard pass, you will lose a jiu-jitsu match 9 times out of 10. In boxing, if somebody jabs you at will, you are probably going to lose. Are there ways to not lose? Sure. In wrestling, if you have a great throw, if you're a great turner, you're a great rider, maybe you can win anyway. If you look at the NCAAs and look at the Olympics, whoever gets more takedowns wins 9 times out of 10. So the idea that Tyson Pedro had no answer for the jab of Petrino, immediately I went, he's going to lose this fight. Vitor Petrino had a good striking offense. He did a few things well, but when he threw the jab every time, it just snapped the head back of Tyson Pedro. And that's it. That's it. You're never going to beat that guy if you can't get around the jab, and it's a striking contest. Now, in MMA, there are more ways around it. You can lose the leg kick battle and still win if you take the person down or whatever, right? A lot of ways to win. But still, even in MMA, where there are a lot of avenues, if you can't deal with somebody's leg kick, you can't deal with their jab, you can't deal with the most basic thing they do, you got a long road. And as soon as Tyson Pedro couldn't deal with the jab, I knew this one was over. I knew it. Of course, he afterward talked about his financial difficulties, and it's the same old story we've heard a million times. And the important thing to keep in mind, if you follow the sport enough, he got to a level most fighters never get to. Not only in the UFC, but had a winning record in the UFC and was at one time considered a guy who might be a contender. Maybe he can do something. And this wasn't, for example, a practice squad guy in the NFL where you're like, okay, that guy was never going to. No, we're talking about a guy who, did some decent things in the UFC and is financially just completely out of luck, and it sucks. It's the nature of the sport right now, as we're looking at it, is what it is. We'll see if the lawsuit changes anything. It may or may not, but, it's the same old song of, I'm done with my career and I don't have anything. Yeah, it sucks. It really sucks. But Tyson Pedro losing to Vitor Petrino by unanimous decision, it was never particularly close. A lot of it based on that jab and the ability to use the jab effectively to open up the rest of the offense. So the only, and I picked Vitor Petrino to win. So the only upset I picked was Rosenstruik over Gaziev. Why? I thought with this whole thing of the UFC making these fight nights and not having a lot to use, right? Not having a lot of materials. They're going to throw people in there who just aren't ready yet. In your second UFC fight, he came up through the Contender Series. You're fighting in the main event? I don't care if it's a fight night. I don't care if it's the Apex. I don't care if, you're not exactly at Madison Square Garden. It's still a big step up. He's undefeated. Yeah, a lot of people are undefeated at the local level. And then they take that step up and they lose. Well, this is a guy who had fought once in the UFC, but main event, an experienced guy, I didn't think he was ready for this. Now, I thought it would work out differently because he has some defensive issues. We saw how often he was hit in this fight. He's just like walking right into a lot of punches. I thought Rosenstruik would turn it over earlier and finish him. He didn't. I think he respected. This dude's big. He hits hard. The jab's working. Stay with it. The easiest advice to give in combat sports and MMA is what's working. This. Keep doing that. Are you winning? Yes. How are you winning? With this. Keep doing that. Be ready for your opponent to change, right? Be ready for your opponent to do something different, but, stay the course for the most part. Like I said, when I talk about other sports, if you're running the ball and you're getting 6 yards every time you hand the ball off, all right, we're just going to keep giving it and base everything else off that. Even if it's the only thing we do, we base everything off that. And his jab, once again, money. Rosenstruik just threw the stick at him the whole time and bloodied his nose up, bloodied his face up. Things start swelling. Vision gets bad. And that was it. And it was just, what the jab does is it throws the stick in the bicycle wheel, right? You start, boom, and jab hits you, right? Jab hits you right in the face. Starting to throw combinations, bing, jab hits me in the face. It just throws off the offense. You never get going if you can't get past the jab, because every time you try to do anything, there's a jab in your face, you can't see anything. And that's what happened. Over and for 4 rounds, Gaziev just couldn't get that stick out of his face. And when you can't, you can never do anything. You can never get your own momentum going. And also, once again, the experience issue here, he didn't have a lot of weapons. Some boxers, it's pretty rare, can beat someone who out-jabs them. It's pretty rare, but you can. Why? They have other weapons they know how to use. Right, I'm a great inside fighter. I'm this. I can, make this about body shots and close-up stuff and hooks and uppercuts. I can do that. But it takes experience. It takes a lot of experience. And Gaziev didn't have that. He didn't have the arsenal. He didn't have the body of weapons to lose the most fundamental battle you can lose and come back and win. He didn't have. It takes an extremely experienced fighter to lose the basic battle in Muay Thai, the leg kick battle, in wrestling, the takedown battle, whatever. Ben Askren didn't have a great standard takedown. He would let other people get in on him, and then he would counter with this weird, funky stuff, and it worked. And he freaking won 2 national titles and went to the Olympics. So every now and then there's a guy like Ben Askren who will turn people or put them on their back in these weird positions where the standard single leg, double leg, his probably wasn't as good as everybody else's, but he was able to make it work. Once again, incredibly experienced at the elite level. And Gaziev couldn't turn around a fight where he was getting out jabbed. He didn't have, I think I'll kick. I think I'll make this clinch battle. He did get a couple takedowns, which he had never gotten before. That's nice. didn't once again have the experience on the ground to capitalize on that. As a heavyweight, almost always, so few fighters in heavyweight MMA history had guards you had to worry about. Fedor, Big Nog, Frank Mir, guard-wise. Verdum had a decent guard. There aren't a lot. If you're on top, you can beat the crap out of most heavyweights, even if their jiu-jitsu's decent. They got to be on top of you to make it work. So, anyway, once you got on top, that should be it. And I noticed he wasn't able to do that much. He wasn't able to really take the fight over, even though he won the takedown battle. So, for people who didn't see it, at the end of round 4, he says, I can't see. Doctor stops the fight. That's it. So, he just got outstruck for 4 rounds. Volume was there. Jab was there. The problem now is the winner in Rosenstruik has always failed that step-up test. He's always beaten the Gazievs of the world, which is why I picked him in this fight. He had never had a step-down performance. He had losses, right? But they were to Curtis Blades. They were to Francis Ngannou. They were to the guys that are, Gelton Almeida beat him, right? So you're looking at the guys who are at least in the title conversation. He had never lost to a Fight Night guy. And Gaziev is a Fight Night guy right now. Sure, it might change. But I thought the experience disparity was a little too much to overcome in this one, and that's exactly what happened. So, anyway, it's a big fight week. Got a pay-per-view next weekend, so you're going to be hearing a lot from me here. Anyway, tune in, like it, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. Talk to you later.